Good afternoon, colleagues. You're welcome to a live broadcast on construction working drawing on the platform of Association of Nigerian Chartered Architects. First off, before we get the ball rolling for the lecture, would like to establish some ground rules. Kindly ensure that you don't turn on your cameras to help our bandwidth, so that we'll be able to sustain the bandwidth. Cameras should be on, cameras should be off, mics should be muted. Please, at any time, always check that your mics remain muted and your cameras are turned off. We're all ready to start by 2 on the dot. Our guest speaker is here. Our co-hosts are already on ground, and we've done our sound check, and we believe we are good to go. Akin to that, we are live on YouTube too. So just in case you have colleagues who may want to join, kindly let them know, and they are not able to do so, kindly let them know they can follow us on our YouTube channel, Anchor Architects. Anchor Architects, just look, run off on the YouTube channel on Anchor Architects, so they can follow the conversation, the lecture as it streams. I think for now, that's all, while we wait for the rest to join us. And you could also use the reaction icon just to signify what, probably you clap of the hand, thumbs up, or rather when you want to raise your hand, what's it called, the electronic raising of the hand, to signify our attention, so we might unmute you if need be. Thank you very much, while we wait for the dot of 2 to commence the lecture. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues. You're welcome once again to another insightful and instructive webinar on construction working drawing. First off, before we get the ball rolling, I'd like to admonish that cameras be turned off. Our cameras be off, please, so that we'll be able to sustain the bandwidth. Just turn off your camera, please. That's Adekunle Michael Afolayan. Then your mics, kindly let your mics be on mute at all times. If you have any form of question or query, kindly use the chat box. Feel free to use the chat box, please. Akin to the further housekeeping rules, if you have any concerns or you'd like to make any suggestion, just use the electronic hand to signify you'd want attention from your side. So we'll know if we'll want to unmute you at that point in time. Once again, please, all mics on mute, all cameras turned off, please. All cameras turned off. Thank you. Okay, we are going to be moving on. All cameras turned off, please. First off, before we go on, I'd like, with the electronic wave, if you can hear me, just signify or write in the chat box. Rather, please just write in the chat box if you can hear us. If we're doing a sound check, if you can hear us, please. Just use the chat box to let us know if you can. Great. Namdi Onwe, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right. Having done that, we'd like to move with the speed of light because we are all very busy people, especially our guest speaker who has accorded us this honor, doing us this honor in the midst of tight schedule to be here with us. I can tell you before he's supposed to round up, he has another meeting. So we just have to do everything with the speed of light. So before we bring our guest speaker on, well, we'll want to read his citation before we bring him on board. And the person who will do us the honor of reading his citation will be Oluwafumi B. Beckley. He's an architect here with us. Thank you. You have the floor, Beckley.
Thank you, Architect Badru himself. Citation of Architect Ladipo Adesheye Lewis. Our resource person, Architect Ladipo Adesheye Lewis, FNIA, was born on the 23rd of November, 1967. He hails from Lagos Island, local government area of Lagos State. He attended Mainland Preparatory Primary School, Bankolemo Street, Surulere, Lagos, for his primary school education. He attended Birch Freeman High School, Akobi Crescent, Surulere, Lagos, for his secondary education. He proceeded to the University of Jos in Jos, Plateau State, where he obtained the Bachelor of Science and Master of Science in Architecture in 1988 and 1990, respectively. He is a full member and a fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Architects. Architect Ladi is also a fully registered member of the Architects Registration Council of Nigeria. He is a member of the Association of Consulting Architects. He was the chairman of the Lagos State chapter of the Nigerian Institute of Architects Education Committee between 2008 and 2010. He was the General Secretary of the Lagos State chapter of the Institute between 2010 and 2012. At the NIA national level, he was a member of the NIA BRS committee from 2009 to 2013. a member of NIA Finance Committee 2011 to 2013, a member of Education Board 2010 to 2016, Chairman, Nigerian Institute of Architects, Lagos Chapter, member, International Affairs Committee, NIA National, member, Akon Education Committee 2016 to date, member, Council on Tall Buildings and Urban Institute, Vice President 1, Birch Freeman Old Boys Association. Architect Ladipo Lewis is a fully registered architect. He is the principal partner of ASDEC ASC Limited, a multidisciplinary design outfit, and ASDEC ASC Limited, a real estate development firm. He is widely traveled, having attended and delivered lectures in various professional conferences in Nigeria and all around the world. Please join us as we welcome architect Ladipo Adesheye Lewis as he gives us his lecture on construction working drawings. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Hello, can you hear me? Can you indicate if you can?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, can you see my screen? Please indicate if you can see my screen. Please wave your hand if you can see my screen. Okay, that's good. Someone's waved already. Thank you. So if we were ready to go, this is a working drawings manual that was prepared some years ago, but we've been updating it and looking closely at it. And it's a collaboration between quite a few people. One of them is architect Shola Ige, and myself and a few others. And it's just like a checklist looking at how do you prepare working drawings? And we decided to make it in the form of a manual. So I'll go straight into it. I'm simply going to focus on the working drawings aspect. There's also a section on BIM, introduction to using BIM, not as a software, but as how to use the content. But today we'll be dealing with that of the working drawings. So I'm looking at the introduction, the types of drawings. Let me want to explain a little bit what are schematic drawings, design drawings, detailed drawings, working drawings. There are stages in the production of working drawings. And then we're going to the reintroduction of the working drawing itself. It's coordination, drawings as in the title block, the schedule, of drawings, key drawings, site plan, floor plan, reflected ceiling plan, roof plan, sections and elevations, and interior elevations on key drawings. And as I've said, the other section is on BIM, which we'll put to another date. So, but because there's a lot to talk about in the working drawings, the BIM is also an extensive, detail that it looks at how you incorporate your working drawings and building information modeling. So I'm going to look at this. This was a presentation that I've said that we've been working through. It's in the architecture operation relies on information found in architecture working drawings to communicate design intent to a construction team. It contains dimension and graphical information to enable the project to be constructed. This information is incorporated into tender documentation and contract documents for the construction works. So what we're saying is that working drawings is like writing a letter to someone, explaining something. but using graphics, using presentation, you know. So the intent is, I want to communicate. That's what you have to put at the back of your mind. So this manual is a document meant for training purposes, you know, and construction documentation in architecture offices. This has become imperative, the lack of training materials available and the introduction of new technology that requires incorporation of building information modeling into the construction industry. I'm mentioning this because the assumption people have is that, oh, once I have Revit, I have ArchiCAD, working drawings are done. No. Working drawings are like writing a letter to someone, and you want to communicate an intent. You want to tell someone, oh, I need you to go from here to Ibadan. You need to stop at so place and so place, deliver so and so. Detailed instructions step by step as that person gets, you know, as that person carries out all the assignments you give him. So it's the same thing in working drawings. You need to give someone a set of drawings that tells the person step by step, how do I put this building together? How do I put this structure together? So you have to keep that at the back of your mind about the information you want to give out. So we can say there are different types of drawings. Some people have used schematic drawings to execute buildings. There's a stage where we look at what we call design drawings, or detailed drawings, or what we call the actual construction working drawings. So in detailed drawings, which I will jump to, these are technical drawings, you know. These are drawings and documents where all the design information required to manufacture and construct the project is completed and ready for tender process. Any relevant specialist consultant subcontractor will be approached to join that project at that point in time. These drawings are used to prepare and coordinate the design team, building systems information, prepare, synchronize, and integrate specialist sub-consultants, subcontractor building systems information, develop architecture and engineering technical design, prepare manufacturing information, construction information, final specifications, embedding the inclusive design requirements, building regulations, applications, and other project strategies. So when you look at the construction working drawings, which is the final thing you look at, it's the phase where you're going to construction. It must include specifications for construction details and materials. So you're going to put in a lot of information into it. You could have it separated, have schedules in it, which we will look at. So this construction document include a complete set of your architectural drawings. In some cases, you could do a project where you buy only just a layout, a plan, a floor plan. You might not have a roof over the building. You might have sections. You could require details. And some cases you might not, depending on what you are putting together. And of course, you combine them with structural drawings and possibly mechanical and electrical drawings for very large projects that have enough detail for the contractor to build the project. Now, let's look at working drawings as an introduction to what it is. As we've said before, it's a set of working drawings. It's a construction manual describing your accurate information. It must be comprehensive, sufficiently detailed for its purpose. Information conveyed must be technically sound. Now, working drawings are used for tendering, for contract documentation, base information, statutory approvals. When you send drawings for approval, you could use that. Developing construction a program, developing as build drawings, review, and feedback source. But most importantly, you also need to remember that in working drawings, there is a coordination aspect. Every time you look at drawings, you need to coordinate. So it's not just your architectural working drawings alone that you're looking at. You're looking at the structural, you're looking at the mechanical, and you're looking at the electrical. And there must be consistency in them. You see, we've had a case where someone never looked at their title blocks, ended up developing the project, completing it. 5 years later, they're submitting it for a presentation. And we discovered what is written on the title block. After the project has been completed, handed over to the client maybe for about 2 or 3 years, the working drawings are showing residential development. Meanwhile, it was an institutional building. How did that occur? So you need to coordinate at every level. Everything, your titles, block must be coordinated with that of every other consultant. One cannot be reading residential, one reading commercial, or reading institutional, or reading a shopping plaza. everything must be consistent. Grid lines must be consistent. They must be coordinated. All aspects of those drawings. The names of the client must be consistent. So the plans must be consistent across all the drawings. If not, there's going to be chaos on site. So that's always a key thing. And currently, you know, in the olden days when we used to overlay drawings, so you could see the differences in when you're using tracing paper. Now you can do that even with a lot of softwares, and you can put drawings side by side to cross-check all this information. Of course, BIM software assists you in doing that, but you still need the manual oversight of these things. You need to check your drawings. Do not assume the computer corrects it. And sometimes one key button will change everything. As you all know, when you send text by WhatsApp, you forget to look at the spelling correctly, and a word has been changed for you without you knowing it. So check, recheck, and recheck. So let's start with the drawing title block. What's the first thing? The architect's firm name, address, and details. Don't be too surprised. A lot of people make errors on these things, and you see they're on their own drawings. There are errors. The firm's name is wrong. The address is wrong. The details are wrong. And sometimes there is inconsistency between one project and another. Yes, you have your client's name. It's important. The name should be in full. Should not have initials. Please always remember that. Should be the client's name. And if they married couple, it should be their first names of both the husband and wife and their surname. Anybody could be Mrs. anything, any day at any time. I leave that to you to think about. Now, the project name and address is also key. It should describe the location of the project. It might be required for to locate the site at any given point in time. Then your drawing title. You need to tell us what kind of drawing this is. Is it a key plan? Is it a working drawing? Is it is it a detailed drawing? Is it an elevation plan? Whatever it is, and then whether it's a ground floor plan, upper floor plan, whatever floor plan it is. I mean, you see a lot of errors where people have made mistakes, and the entire sheet is reading ground floor plan from ground to 5th floor, and errors like that you need to check and make sure those are correct. Then you need to have a project number. As you have a lot of projects in offices, you need to put a project number in it. You can create your own format from your office. Maybe every year you have the year the project is done, the month it is done. You might even have numbers for people in the office to know who did what, without even having to write the person's name. You could also abbreviate it in terms of how you do your filing system and how you want to locate your projects. Then the status. Drawings are constantly moving, at different stages of work. So is it for client approval? Is it for client information? Is it for subcontractors input? Is it for a consultant's input? Is it for a main contractor's information? At whatever stage those drawings are. Is it an as-built drawing? If it's a working drawing, you need to indicate what stage it is. Now, the project team details. This also is key. You need to indicate who worked on what and at what time. Now, you might have an abbreviated format where you can, list all those, but put the abbreviations there. But in a sheet, you have what the full names of those people are. It helps to track who did what and when, and who worked on what. Then the scale. A lot of times people design now without scale and simply just plot whatever it is and hope to get it right. You need to also identify what kind of scale you're using. It might be necessary at one given point in time. The drawing date, it's key. You might think it's something that can be carelessly fixed, but when you have produced a lot of corrections in drawings and drawings have evolved through iterations, dates are the only way to track when a project was done. Sometimes it's when it's printed and it's given out, that date as when that set was completed, that date should be there. So in the next set of drawings, the date will show, this was previous, this was after. And it could lead to a lot of confusion if you don't put those dates. And you could end up sending an old drawing to get built when you made probably 2, 3, 4, 5, or 50 changes on drawing. The sheet size is also good for you to put it in, because you might have set the standard for the print to be at your drawing set to be at A3 size, and somebody wants to print at A2. You could have distortions in it, and so it's always best to determine it. And if some people use unusual size dimensions, let people know. So when they put it in their own printer, the thing doesn't show errors in it. Maybe parts of the drawing is being cut off. Then, as we've said, the drawing numbers. You need to have, a drawing number to show each sheet, each number, what number it is, what kind of project is it, and you can determine that for yourself and your office. There's really no standard convention of how you want to. This is actually information for yourself and to guide who you want to send these things to. So you can create your own, make it simpler, less complicated. Then you have a revision bar. This helps you to tell, the changes you've made. So as each new drawing comes up, you write in there, oh, we changed sheet so and so and so, we changed sheet so and so. So if you take the previous set and you bring the new set, the revisions will quickly tell you the additional works that have been done on those drawings, the additional corrections, changes that have been there, and which page those changes are on. So it helps you a lot when you have all those revisions, stated. Now, it's always best when you start doing those revisions when your drawings start going up, not maybe while you're working internally, because you might have a long list of them. Of course, drawings are constantly being changed, but they say once your drawings start going out, revisions become key and become a factor to tracking changes, which your contractor can claim, I didn't know which one you sent. I didn't know when you changed so and so. But when you have revisions, they guide you, especially when you have other things like the dates, and drawing numbers on your drawings to track them. Then you can have notes. You can write as many notes as you want, stating instructions to the contractor. You shouldn't scale, you should check so and so, you should do this, you should do that. Any notes to guide the work can be put inside the drawings. You might say, look, you want to make sure that there are standards that the contractor must follow. He must cross-check with you for certain requirements. He must do this, he must do that. So you can have even a full sheet of notes as well, not just, arranged around the title block. And even the notes on that title block will actually be instructions as to what to read on your title block and what not to, and how to understand what you put there. Then you can also have your key plan on your title block. It's important when you're having blow-ups of drawings, you have a key plan to know which part of this drawing are we looking at. It's always, the key plan is always on the title block. You have your not point and you can have a legend. Now, most people have asked this question and most people wonder that, oh, not is only on the side plan, the elevations as well, your sections. Which direction are you facing? So it helps you coordinate your drawings. It helps you understand, which face of the building are you looking at. So not directions help. And as far as I'm concerned, I'll put it on any drawing that I need it to get to carry information through. So that's as key plans. We now go on to schedule of drawings. The schedule is a list of all your drawings from beginning to end. This, you see, the schedule can be arranged in whatever format you want them to be. A lot of people think in a drawing, you simply have one site plan. You could have as much as 5, 10, 20 site plans with site sections. You would need to list those drawings. In case a sheet gets missing, if you go to the schedule, you'll be able to tell, oh, is my drawing, is one drawing missing or is not? And then you could have basement plans showing all kinds of things. an issue came up on the drawing in the office, and we now realized that we had to cut our floor plans at different levels. So a ground floor plan could actually have a cut at maybe above the window sill level, so maybe about 1.2. Then another cut at maybe above the door level at 2.2, showing different things. So you could have a long list of plans. So the schedule allows you to know how many sheets have we produced and where are they and what arrangement and what format are they. So that will also include your layout of those drawings, the arrangement of those drawings. So in that section of business, you have all those layouts put in there. So your layout drawings, your key drawings are all in the schedule. The assembly drawings are also there too. I'm going to go into detail of what those different sections of those drawings are, but you can see each section of them is arranged already and put in the schedule of drawings. The component drawings also as well. So let's go to the first set, the site plans, which you see in the schedule. So what do you put in there? You have your buildings, your roads, your walkways on the site. So we did this like a checklist. Of course, you put your boundaries and all that. You have your north point, must be shown on all plans. You have your grid lines. Which, of course, you transfer them to all your drawings too as well. Grid lines, elevations, sections, roof plan, they will all follow the same format. Then the dimensions too, to those grid lines. It's not of any use to anybody for you to have a grid line and no dimension on it. Was information being passed on? Your boundary lengths, bearing, and annotations. We've seen site plans with no beacon notations on them. How do you relate them to the survey plan? And you need to know the boundary lengths. They are key to it. All these dimensions need to be put there. And any annotation. Is this a planter? You see people draw lines on their floor plans, or sorry, on their site plans, and you don't know what it is. If it's parking, you need to indicate it. So what you would see that sometimes you might have to now split your site plans to give certain information. So you might have one that shows just your dimensions to the boundaries and your setting out dimensions. And if it's so congested, you might need to move landscape, both soft and hard, to another plan already. Levels to another, site plan, showing those explicit information. So as we said, like graded and ungraded site levels, you could have sites with a lot of site levels from one point to the other that they take an entire sheet of their own by themselves. With ramps, with all kinds of levels in it. So you might need to work that out too as well. So each of these sheets, depending on how detailed you want it, depending on the contractor you're giving information to, depending on how much time you want to put into it to make sure that at the end of the day on site, you can sleep at ease and not be running to site almost every day like a lot of people do because you gave out sketchy information. Imagine sending a drawing to site for a contractor to start the work and there are no levels. How is he going to make those assumptions? By himself, it's going to have issues. Now, site services, external works and plans. You have to indicate a lot of things on site plans that a lot of people commit. And sometimes ask what kind of access to water do you have on your site? You get to the lot of people that they build and nobody knows where they're going to position a borehole until the borehole engineer arrives on site. Then he picks a point where it's not convenient to anybody, or is across some obstruction and you have to demolish. But if you laid out all these sites and services on plan and looked at it and worked it out, you would avoid all those things. You've had cases where someone wants to locate certain things and doesn't realize that it can't be located in that area for one reason or the other. You might ask yourself, oh, we have this building. How is the NEPA cable, supply cable going to enter the site? Do they have mains, public mains? How is it going to enter the site? From where to where? Is it going to cross some obstacle? Positioning your septic tank soakaways or sewage treatment plants, water treatment plants are key to organizing the site from day one. And you might end up creating a problem for yourself when all these things are not worked out. Landscape plan is always left, to a gardener, who just comes in and just puts it. But it's important that you understand, how landscape plans work, especially in very, very detailed work. You might be shocked that you have, created problems for, the landscape person because of you didn't lay it out correctly. Then I go to the setting out points, dimensions, setting out plan. This is very, very, very important. And we see a lot of drawings where you can't actually set out the building. Everybody assumes that, one border of the site is parallel to the building. It's not always so in reality. So you need to check it out. There are hardly ever sites that the borders are 90 degrees. So you might always discover that the contractor just makes up whatever he can with whatever little information you're giving him. But if you worked out your setting out, plotted out your survey plan accurately, you would have compensated for that. And we've had cases where the contractor ended up putting the building inside the setback at one point, and at other point was way out because he assumed everything from the little dimensions he was given. Even in the setting out, you might need to use it to locate your landscape element, you might use it to locate trees. So setting out plan could be a drawing of its own, and one of the key drawings for the site plan. You use to locate your septic tank, sewage treatment plant, borehole, where exactly is it going to be? Now you also have what we call specification notes. Here, we kind of giving them numbers on the drawing, but it's key to understand that you could also write them for a drawing that isn't that detailed, that doesn't have too much of specifications required for it. But in a lot of cases where you have a lot of specifications, you might not have a schedule for those things on your site plan. This is a fence. What kind of fence is it? Is it concrete? Is it block work? What kind of foundation is it expected to have? So you might need to specify, it needs to be demolished, it's existing, it's tilted, or it's about to collapse. There's a danger. You indicate it on your drawings. You have steps into the house. You might want to indicate that. You might have a lamp pole. I just put a circle there and say it's a lamp pole. I don't know what it is. It's just a circle. So I might need to have those specifications that this is a lamp pole. It's not a bollard. It's not a piece of furniture. So specification keynotes can help a lot in understanding all the graphics you put on your site plan. I know a lot of people like to decorate their site plans with all kinds of vegetation that has no meaning in the drawing. Please avoid all those things that you just like to, as if you're designing some presentation drawing. These are working drawings. Everything is to be implemented, built, or avoided. If there's a tree you want to avoid, you need to write it that this tree should not be removed. Then you have callouts. This go to what you call the assembly drawings. You detail an area. Here there is a call out of a septic tank and a soakaway. There's a call out of the entrance area in a building. There's a call out of the corner of a building. So on the assembly drawings, you enlarge them to show what it is. And you can see that it has a notation. What call out is this? What sheet number is it on? Then this is a legend where you put all your specification keynotes. You list them there. Now imagine if you wanted to write these things directly into your drawing. You take up a lot of space. So why not just give them numbers and then list them here? You can create your own convention for them. And that makes it quite interesting for you. And then you need to also take your contractors through your drawings, explaining those things. Don't just send them drawings and then expect them to find their way around it. Then your statutory development data. A lot of people forget this. It's a requirement of the planning authority. It differs from area to area, but you have the standards where you have the site footprint area, the built-up area, the undeveloped area, hard landscaping, soft landscaping. In some places, you calculate for the setback area. What's the area of setback that you have? So, yeah, number of floors, the floor to ceiling height, parking ratio. There's quite a lot of things you can put in it. So a lot of data. You can also work at a percentage of built-up area, floor area ratio. So all that data will be required, and the statutory development data is something that the planning authority want to see, especially number of units. If it's residential, if it's commercial, they will ask you to put the total floor area, lettable floor area in relation to parking, and then you calculate the parking ratio into it. In some cases, some further information might be required. That have you met the provisions of the planning authority? So if you go to the approval order, there might be more information that you might need to indicate. The ratio of residential to commercial, if it's mixed use and all that. All that data comes under statutory development data. Then finally, at every end of every analysis that we do, you say review your checklist items. Go over them once again. And normally you always have someone who does the drawing and someone who checks it. So that you have like two people who sign off on the drawings. So we go to floor plans, part of our key drawings. So your client approves your design drawings. That's where you do all your beautiful color drawings, schematics, and all that. Then you move into the main drawing itself. The north point must be shown on all your plans again. So if you have a floor plan, we are not teaching you how to design here. We're teaching you the conventions going into it. So if you have done your floor plan correctly, then you should put the north plan in it. You might say, why? If you're looking at east-west axis, it helps you understand the layout of the building. It helps the contractor also have his orientation over how your building fits into the site plan. And in countries where sites are very large, contractors can make mistakes by reversing your building, putting in the wrong direction. The front, the approach of the building becoming the rear. Now on your floor plans, you've transferred also your grid lines from your site plan. They should all coordinate with each other. So if you started a grid on your site plan, it should relate to your floor plans as well. Don't change them. It creates a lot of confusion when people start to link your drawings together and they want to synchronize them. So grid lines will be shown on all your drawings, and they must relate from one to the other. Of course, it must have dimensions. I'm not going to teach dimensions today because dimensioning is a course on its own, how to dimension drawings. But make sure your grid lines are dimensioned. I want to mention that Francois Wright had a unique way of doing his working drawings. He would use standard grids. So a lot of times, because it's a standard grid, you won't need to write dimensions of them because from the grid line, it's either a 1.2 by 1.2 meter grid, a 1.8 by 1.8 or a 1.2 by 600 grid, and he puts, like he's done his drawing on a grid sheet. Everything then aligns in within it. So he reduces the amount of dimensions he puts on his drawings. And you can see that he had this style of using the Japanese mat, sleeping mat, as a dimensional grid. It's a rectangular grid. And now he used that for a lot of his buildings. And then he also started using grids at 45 degrees. Now, you also need your room names and numbers. This helps when you start doing schedules. How many, what is the room number, and what's it describing? If you can see this sheet, you see that some of the furniture is there. I'm not looking at the design, so we are not teaching design today, but we're looking at the fact that each place is labeled and numbered. It will help you when you want to pick out a schedule, or you want to cross-check your cost consultant's figures. You want to change a tile in a particular room, that is a reference. the name and the number. Because you might have 2, 3, 4 bedrooms, but the number will tell you which one is which. So keep that in mind. Then your door tags, they're important. A lot of people leave that and then you place the wrong door in the wrong place. Someone buys security doors and you see them being put, in front of the store because the doors were not tagged on the drawings. And you don't have to be physically now going one by one pointing to them. This goes here. But once you have your door tags, you're able to do a door schedule that relates to the kind of doors and where they should be placed. Same thing for window. In the design of the building, sometimes you also have curtain wall tags. You have the window, you have a curtain wall, you need to tag them and describe them as they relate to your schedule. So if I go to the schedule and I look at the number, I can tell, oh, the window on so-so bedroom, this is what it looks like. And when you do schedules, window schedules can be very, very detailed. So, and you will have, you will have a lot of information on them. So misplacing them can be problematic and be very expensive to correct on sites. Fitted furniture tags, yes. Your wardrobes, they differ from one bedroom to the other. You can also tag them when you want to use it. All kinds of things to be tagged. WCs. To have a building where the WC in the master bedroom is different from the one in the other bedrooms, you need to be tagged. Floor levels. This is important. A lot of people do not bother about floor levels. If you have a site that slopes and is elevated, floor levels now become key. But even if you do not, if you don't put your levels, especially when approaching the building and within the building itself, in case you have, places where you want to retain water from flowing to other parts, and you might need to put levels in them. They are important. Making mistakes with levels will cause your building to be flooded because you did not place them well on the site. Now, dimension. People dimension haphazardly in a lot of floor plans. It's not everything you dimension. The dimension is supposed to give information. Tell me what this is, distance from here to here. If I was going to lay this thing out, what dimensions are key to this? I would say this when setting out for a contractor, your end-to-end dimensions don't matter. It is center-to-center dimensions that are key. When you want to now do furnishing on interior things like that, that is when end-to-end dimensions matter. When the building structure is off, end-to-end dimensions, yes, you can now start using them, but you can also tell that they can never be exactly accurate. Well, because there's also the tolerance of error that you get from your blocks not being the same size, plaster not being in, alignment issues. Because key is center-to-center dimensions. This is what is best used to place any object, including columns, beams, doors, and all that. So try to use those center-to-center. They're easier to coordinate. And then make sure that everything that needs to be dimensioned is dimensioned. Some might not be necessary because one other dimension is taking care of them. So you don't keep on repeating the same dimension over and over and over that we already know is there. And especially when you have a grid line, you already have a grid line dimension, you don't need to dimension it all the way down on the same grid line. And just simply fill up your site with the same, fill up your drawing with the same dimension. Then you have on your floor plan callouts, different sections of your floor plan might require callouts for specific reasons. If you have a treatment around the column, you might want to do a callout to show what that treatment is. There's something called a coin. Is a grooved pattern people put around the corner of a building. You might want to indicate what it looks like. You will have a cladding on that part of the building. So you need to do your callouts to be able to look at that particular area in detail. Then all other relevant services locations. I say this because you might have drain pipes. People don't bother to put drain pipes. It's an afterthought for most people. You might have to put your ACs, air conditioning, and indoor and outdoor units. it's very sad that in this day and age, we still see buildings where the ACs are an afterthought. They now become like a pattern on the wall, stacked all over the place, because the architects never thought of where would these ACs be? What was the arrangement? What was the layout? So they become important. Not just ACs, too, CCTV cameras. If you should have thought of it, so that the cabling can be run, through a conduit. External lighting. So there are a lot of services that will show up on your floor plans if you are detailed enough. And we require to be detailed in our work. Even within the building, within the floor plan, within the interior space, there are certain elements you might want to put there. I now recommend in my office standard that you need to do your sockets and switches. I need to have a bed head. I need to know where the sockets and switches for the bed head is going to be. The switch for the air conditioning unit in the room, where the TV is supposed to be, where the DSTV cable to connect it is supposed to be. So you don't know the flying wires all over your building at a later date. The section lines will also show up on your floor plans at this stage. If you remember what you said on the site plan, you could have site sections. Same thing on your floor plans, you will have the section lines, and you can have as many sections. A young man first came into our office, and the first thing he told me was that he had done 2 sections and he was okay with the design. And I told him, young man, you're going to do like 12. And he was like, wow, why? I said, because there are so many areas of this building that you need to cut sections through. So the era of us doing just 2 sections and believing that the building will come out well is gone. You would always end up spending more money making corrections because you didn't cut enough sections to show each part of the building. And then finally, you review all your checklist items all over again, one by one. Are these things correctly placed? Are they correctly annotated? And are they there at all? So you've not omitted anything. So that concludes the key drawings for the floor plan. So you look at your ceiling plan, very rarely done for a lot of people, but they become important, especially in office buildings. And now you're also in residential buildings when you want to design the POP, except you want to come to site and tell the POP man, just put this, put corners here, put this here, put that here. And then you can't even quantify what jobs you've given out. And there is no real relationship between the suspended ceiling, the POP, the gypsum board ceiling, and the key of the space. So same thing in the reflected ceiling plan. You have a base plan, then you have a north point guiding you, orientation. You have the grid lines as well. Same thing, you've been transferring from one drawing to another. You have dimensions on them to show the key where the grid lines are, so they can relate the floor to the ceiling. It also helps you when you're coordinating your floor plan with the design of your ceiling plan. You need to coordinate the grid lines correctly, and things are not mismatched. We've seen cases where everything is so wrong that the ground floor plan does not relate to the upper floor plan. The grid lines on the ground floor plan are not the same thing as the upper floor plan. And of course, I'm wondering what happened on the sections and the elevations when the ground and first floor plans don't relate. Same thing, your room names and numbers. You need to put them on your reflected ceiling plan. Then your grid. What kind of ceiling plan is it? You might have grid. You might look at this and say, well, it's just unnecessary headache. But they become important if you want your drawings to come out neat. Columns to make a mess of how your grids, are patterned. As the grids go near the wall, you might need to have, a transition finish, just to make sure that the building looks okay, and you don't have some, what I call it, some very tiny gridded panels at the edge of the wall. So that in doing this, you are able to look at your design and see that there is some aesthetics to laying out your ceiling grids. The fixtures. A lot of people do not do these layouts to show where their fixtures are, and other ceiling services. Are you going to have a ceiling fan? Are you going to have any of those things? They become important in the building, and when they are not well coordinated, people just place them anyhow. So you see the ceiling fan is in the odd place, the lights are in odd places, but with a drawing, you already know what you expect. And then it even helps you tell whether you overloaded them or they are there's another requirement, the requirements are not enough. So, and how they relate to each other from one space to the other. Then the levels of your ceiling. That is also key now when you're designing, a gypsum board ceiling with soffits, reveals, and cornices and all that at different levels. That you now realize that you might need to show this. You actually require to show this level to show the different levels at which your ceilings are. And then how to set them out. What's the dimension? Are you taking it from the center line and spreading it out to the edges of the wall? Or are you framing the perimeter of the wall with a particular panel before you now start your bricks? And how do they relate to other elements? So you might have your tiling direction, which direction you are tiling, and how you want to set them out. Then you can have your specification notes. Describe each part. Oh, this is a wooden slats. Oh, this is suspended ceiling boards with gypsum boards, or a suspended ceiling with fiber board grids, or a gypsum board ceiling. So you need to describe on it, or is it a wood panel? So all these specification notes, key notes will tell you which is which in all of in the different graphics you put in your drawing. And you can also tell whether they are going to be used to suspend heavy light fixtures, so they need to be reinforced. So you need to write all those things there. Then you also have your callouts from the ceiling plan, because you might need to block a section. You might want to elaborate on the toilet where you have some ceiling lights, some accent lighting, things like that. So, and how those are tied around the building, in that section, you probably need to do a call out and show it in the assembly drawings. Now, the section lines also will go back into that, because your sections are going to incorporate everything from the floor plan to the roof plan through your reflected ceiling plan as well. And then the legend. You can see we'll carry the legend in, because by the time you finish your ceiling plan and you have speakers in the ceiling, you have all kinds of, you have CCTV cameras, you can have sprinkler system, sprinkler bulbs in the ceiling. Your legend will probably come loaded. And if you're hanging other things in the ceiling, you need to describe what they are. Just not draw the graphic object without describing what it is. And of course, finally, review your checklist to tell us, have you completed your entire checklist of every item that is supposed to go on your reflected ceiling plan? So we now look at the roof plan. Most roof plans you see are empty. They look just like this. Best you see is the arrow saying it's slanted towards a particular direction. But a roof design showing the building outline is just the element. That's the basics. That's the basis. You also need to show your north direction. Then your grid lines. You can imagine there are times when grid lines are not placed on roof plans, and the person roofing it will just place a roof where there is no roof. And those quantities end up costing the client more, because there wasn't an annotation, or there wasn't a direction as to where the roof starts and ends, and the grid lines helps you orient that. Of course, the dimensions will also assist. And here you have the dimensions of the grid lines, and you can also put dimensions to show the offset, the overhang. You have a rainwater pipe, you need to show us, or a roof gutter. It needs to show inside your roof plan. A lot of roof plans do not have on there most of these things. It's just basic empty sheets. Of course, also you might need to show the roof structure. what kind of carcass they're using. Is it steel? Is it concrete? Is it wood? Whatever it is. You can also show that arrangement, the dimensions between the pole lines, the noggins and all that. It will be nice for you to show them, and it will also help whoever is doing your quantities to arrive at, you know, a credible cost and not an assumption. Then levels. You need to show the levels at different points. By not showing the levels on the lintel roof, the person, you know, roofing, if he is not careful, might increase the roof beyond it, and then you have to build walls up to cover it up, or it makes errors in the purchase of the roofing sheets. So that gives him information on that. Then how you want to set them out. You can see where we're showing, you know, the offset between the wall and the edge of the roofing sheets. So it shows that dimension. And it differs. People assume it's always 600. It's not always so. You have it as whatever dimension, 1.2, 900, whatever. It could be that that's what you're going to use to shape the building. So it's key you have those dimensions as per between your columns, your grid line, and the edge of the building. Then you can have specification notes describing each and every item you have on your drawing. Then your fall direction, your slope to drains, especially when you're doing concrete slabs and multi-gabled roofs, showing that is key. And you have people who do not look at those things, you know, not put it in their drawings, and when they have all these complicated roofs, it's a disaster when putting them up. And you see a lot of wasted materials on site because that was not, you know, set up correctly. Then you have your callouts. They are key. Callouts always allow you to look closely. In fact, a lot of times when we now look closely at some callouts, when we now see that the original design, there was an error in it. I've had a case of someone who did a very beautiful bathroom, did it in BIM, in 3D, to see where the shower stall was, everything was. I said, okay, let's look at the callout. Let's look at it in detail. We've looked at it, the shower stall had shrunk to like 640 mm. It's an impossibility. But in 3D, it looks okay. On scale 1 to 100, you probably may not notice it. But when you do your callout, you get to see all those errors. You get to see whether your door swing is hitting the plumbing fixture or not. So callouts become very, but you need to zoom in and look at the detail. Look at the dimension, it's key. Then the same section, let's go to your roof plan too as well. You know, and you now see have the legend again of all the specification keynotes, all the descriptions. You have a fascia board, what material is your fascia board made of. You have a soffit, what kind of soffit is it made of? All that you need to indicate in your drawings. And then you review all your checklist items all over again. Always review. Now let's go to the drawings, the sections. Follow the same format. You have an outline of the section. The general disaster that comes in working drawings now is that people use Revit Archicad to just cut sections and they think that's where the matter ends. None of those softwares will ever detail your sections for you. You need to do a lot of editing. You need to understand how sections are cut manually before you can efficiently use a BIM software to cut out a detailed section. So you have to indicate your grid lines too on all your drawings, bring it to your sections. There have been cases where that is not done, and someone didn't realize that they had cantilevered on top of the fence of the building, or shifted their grid lines and the building was not within the property anymore. So that allows you to coordinate those errors and correct them. Then you have your floor datums. They are key to know floor-to-floor ceiling heights. That assist those who are doing any analysis on your building and you yourself to know, have you exceeded the height limit in that area? Ungraded site level. You might wonder why you might want to do this. If you have a site that you need to do a lot of excavation, if your cost consultant or your contractor cannot visualize what was your ungraded site level, where your site level was, and where your building is going to amend it to be. So if you had a contour map or a topographical layout of your site, by the time you designed on it, you should also indicate to show where you have adjusted your site levels, where it was originally and where the new one is going to be. Of course, in your section, your room names and numbers will help you track your interior space, track where a room is, how many, and what particular room, what's it meant for. You might think that might not be so important until you are running services and they have to cross from one space to the other, and you can't even find your way around the section anymore. So the room names and numbers let you know where it is. Of course, your door tags also will show. That allows you to see which door is where and in what location. Of course, windows and curtain wall tags will also show up in the sections. When you've cut through them, you can indicate where those windows and curtain walls are. Of course, floor to floor height dimensions. They're different from datum. Datum simply tells you to relate, helps you relate a particular level to the reference point on the ground. Where the floor to floor allows you to see what the dimension is within the floor to the ceiling. And you might think that is not important until you have to run suspended ceilings with concealed services. Then your floor to ceiling height becomes crucial. And we had cases where those errors were made and there was no way of compensating for them. If you're doing a high-rise building with suspended ceiling, with drop beams, your floor to ceiling heights become a crucial matter. Dimensions, they are key, even in sections. A lot of times, people do not relate dimensions in sections to the building itself. I can give an example of you want to have a window near a kitchen, and your kitchen cabinet is at so height. Your window might not be at the normal 900 to compensate for the splashback. So all these things will need to be dimensioned. If you have high level windows, you can dimension it there in your section and indicate what it is. How low does your ceiling drop in certain areas? It's when you are dimensioning there in your section that you can really show where it is. Where your floor to ceiling height, from the floor and up and below the ceiling above it, and below the floor slab above it, where your ceiling will be. Then you also have callouts. Callouts become important in sections because if you have finishes that are attached to the wall, it's at that callout you're going to indicate. If you have a parapet wall, how do you treat the parapet wall? What's the transition between the roofing sheets and the parapet wall? The capping, the fixing of the flashing at that edge of the wall becomes key. On a scale of 1:100, you can't really see any of those details. And a lot of accessories sometimes go into fixing, the flashing of the roof against a parapet wall. If you have a gutter at that point, how are you going to waterproof it? You might also need to indicate the cant at the edge. In basements, callouts for the sections become very, very key because at every junction is a weak point for water to penetrate and moisture to penetrate into the interior of the building. And so when you do this callout, you can indicate the requirements for those points. Then finally, we review all our checklists all over again. It's important that you continue to review your drawings before they go out. Now, elevations. A lot of elevations, you see them as just empty, just the outline. And people feel that's an elevation for working drawings, maybe for presentation or just showing someone what your building form looks like. But in elevations, your grid lines must show. Your grid lines must show. they should relate to every other drawing, from the side plan to the floor plans, to reflected ceiling plan, to the roof plan, to the sections. Floor datums too will show. You know, the days when we had tracing paper, you overlay all these drawings and see that they're accurate. And now also a lot of softwares have this overlay form where you can lay one drawing over the other and make sure that everything is accurately placed. First, your project site level becomes key, especially when you have to cut and fill. You need to indicate that too as well in your animations. It will affect the animations that access into the site. Of course, window wall tags, curtain wall tags, door tags, all these will need to go into your facade too as well. They help describe the building better, and especially when there are large buildings with all kinds of window types. Describing them, placing them allows you to understand how your building comes together. And then the specification keynotes. These are important, even on elevations. You could have a metal pipe. What diameter is it? If it's circular. What's the dimension, length and breadth of the pipe, maybe for the fence? Are you assuming anybody can just fix anything they want? What kind of finisher is it going to be placed on it? Is it going to be powder coated? Is it going to be painted with an enamel paint, or is it going to be painted with how many, what kind of coating do you have? Is it one of, is it going to be marine paint? Marine paint, on the finish. So you need to look at all these items that have wide descriptions. Your fence, is it going to be a brick finish? Is it going to be, a tile finish? Is it going to be a textured paint finish? Is it going to have some specific type of finish on it? Is it going to be grooved after being plastered? All those specification notes will tell you what you're going to put on your facade. Some people describe your facade and it's an afterthought later. How do we want this to look like? Your working drawing should show all those items. And then also call-outs of your facade. They help you to identify how things fit to each other. There are certain things that don't fit in elevations. And you can see them when somebody put a roof and the roof is sloping towards a parapet one. How are you going to take out the water? So going into the detail of the call-out helps you to address these issues. And things that become complex, become simpler because you put details in there. And then you have the legend of all this. You have to have serious legend of everything that you put together. In your key drawings, in your elevations. You must be able to describe every item. If you have exterior lighting fixtures, you need to show them. If you have doorbells on your elevation, you need to show them. If you have any finish, any relief pattern, they will draw a lot of patterns on their elevations and with no description. They're just lines. What's the depth? What's the width? What's it made of? Finally, review all your checklist of all the items that you put in it. It's important because the more information you give, the easier it is for those who are costing your construction work to get accurate figures. It makes it easier for you to get accurate figures. It also allows the contractor to find his way around your drawings without making assumptions or cutting corners. Now we're going to go to the last part of this, that's the key drawings interior elevations. Rarely done in a lot of work, but it becomes very, very important when you want detailed finishes on your building. People don't want to prepare this because it says a lot of headache. And we assume that buildings will look fine. A lot of times we leave them to decorators to come and finish up. And then we place things on the elevations and it looks ugly. They are not aligned, they are not proportional. But when you cut an elevation, you can look at when we are approaching the room, how does it look like? What's the height of this? And you can see a lot of places where the height of the wash hand basin was gotten wrong because nobody did the wall elevation. It won't show anywhere else but the wall elevations, the interior wall elevations. It's not going to show anywhere but interior wall elevations. And you can see someone placing a tap and it's 300 above the ground. It's in the wall interior elevations that you will be able to put those dimensions. No. So the same thing, you use your grid lines to guide you as you know where this interior elevation starts and where it ends. You have the floor datums to show the floor from one level to the other in relation to the ground. This helps those who are when they're doing form work to be able to set out your form work. When it now comes to the interior work, they use the floor to ceiling heights. But when your datums are used to set out your building. Same thing, room names and numbers. If you don't put them in, you can't tell which elevation you're looking at, which interior wall elevation you're looking at, and where it is. Then your window tags, door tags, curtain wall tags. This helps you identify where you've placed a particular window, particular door, where a curtain wall is, and any other element that you need to tag. Now, you need to set, they are setting out dimensions for all fittings and fixtures. It's rather sad that, when placing certain objects within a building, the interior part of it is not coordinated. And you can see it when you approach the building that there is something wrong. This is an extra detail. And I know a lot of people complain about it, the client is not paying, but if you really want to prepare good work, you need to factor the information you're giving out. It will tell on how the building looks at the end of the day. I've seen that as a problem in a lot of buildings I've done, that we needed to have put this dimension there, because these workmen will end up putting things where they're not supposed to be. It's also key, as as you're doing this drawing, that you explain the drawings to your contractor. A lot of times they don't look at your drawings. They see them as pretty pictures. They have something in their mind they want to go and install, and they will go and do it. Except you precisely tell them, this is the height, this is supposed to be. They won't measure it. So you have your set out dimensions for finishes. Your finishes, how you want your wall tiled. If you've chosen a particular tile, you can choose a pattern. You also do in the interior wall dimensions, interior wall elevations, you can set the pattern and how they're going to be fixed. It can be, graphically, done that, this band of mosaic is from this height to that height. The accent style is from this height to that height, or it's either horizontally or vertically. You need to show how they're going to be dimensioned and how they're going to be placed there. Then you have your specification notes. What kind of ceiling are you putting there? What kind of lights? LED lights, what's the size? Is it, an accent light? Is it a directional light? Is it LED? Is it fluorescent? Whatever it is. Your specification notes should tell, all the different, they give you all the different information on the wall finish. Is the door? Do you have a kicker plate there? Do you have a wall panel somewhere? What's it made of? HDF, MDF? What kind of surface finish does it have? So your specification notes will describe all that. And of course, your best bet is to have it as a legend. Your call out also for assembly drawings, you do your call out that because that goes into your assembly drawings. This is where you also blow up some of these, things that are hard to see. How does your ceiling terminate with the vertical wall? Is there going to be a cornice there? You cover that a lot of drawings don't have all these things, and it's at the end of the day when the building is about to be finished, they now start fixing cornices, and then everything's made done manually without any direction. So you need to look at all that. And then, as I've said, the legend, where all the notes you've put in it, you can categorize them and actually specify them in detail. I'm going to stop here because there's a lot more on the BIM side. This manual is always constantly being worked on. So the final thing, of course, will review all your checklist items, which we're constantly adding to it. If you want a detailed manual, that document is about 300 pages of everything you can imagine that is required in the drawing. If you look at this, if you look at a site plan, you could have as much. You could have a demolition plan of the site. Demolish this, retain this, clear that, excavate this, fill that. That could be something else in the site plan. So as much detail could be required depending on the project. What I would suggest is that start with the basic and build it up. And then you need to own your project. Know from where to where your project is starting from and where is it going to. The level of contractor you're choosing. What information you need to give to them and at what stage. And the difference of contractors. So it's very, very important that you have a detailed checklist. You can continue to add to this checklist as you go along. I've not included any references, but there are quite a lot of references on working drawings out there. And I would suggest that you look for ways by which you can pick them up. I might maybe on the to the organizers send them a list of some of these things as time goes on, of various drawings that you could use as your reference to them. But I'm sure anyone who wants to produce working drawings should just simply look at the information they want to give. What information do I want to give? Is that information adequate? Is it concise? Does it address the matter? You could have a bedroom that you want to detail, and you might need to dimension the bed head. What kind of finishes on it? How thick is it off the wall surface? What is going to be used to attach it to the wall? Are there going to be lights around? When you detail those things, you are careful enough not to make a problem for yourself. What I need to let you know is that there are codes. There are a lot of codes. Construction drawings, a lot of codes. In the residential building code, you would discover that there are certain requirements to laying out a bathroom where you can have the sockets and switches and where you can have light, the distance from any plumbing object. You could also look at, the kitchen. One thing I always complain about is that a lot of times you have workmen who come and fix things in your building. They simply just come and fix it because there were no directions. They were not taught through. It's always an afterthought where the meter is. And you see some buildings and suddenly you discover that the meter is now the wall facade. It's part of the wall facade. And I always ask, is that the best place they could have been placed? So you need to work that out in your buildings. Where will these items be? The outdoor units for the air conditioning system, where will they be? Something as simple as your gatehouse, is it well located? So I would like to stop at this point today. We had was more than an hour 20 minutes. And time is fast spent today. So we'll do the BIM on another day and that BIM is not a software thing. It's just how you use that to relate your working drawings to a 3D form and putting the information into it. And now it can help you coordinate a project. Like what we did on one was to look at the structural drawings, we modeled it, then built our architectural drawing with the structural drawing, we discovered a lot of things. In fact, so many things. And that level of coordination in 3D helped a lot. And we also attached information to every item to see, how we could get quantities of each of the items in it. So we had a design where we had, pie caps. We had to know what is the size of the pie cap. How does the ground beam tie to the pie cap? And we were able to correct the structure in this. In fact, they had mistakes that we kept on insisting, this is a mistake. They said it's not a mistake. No, they said, look at it very well. We now have to send a 3D model of the structural drawing, and then they say, oh, it's an error, our mistake. Of course, it was a costly mistake on site if that had been allowed to get to site. So thank you very much. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity of speaking to over 123 people. And I can see some names that I know very well. Thank you very much. So I'll take some questions. Okay.
Thank you very much, Architect Lardy Lewis. Thank you so much. Okay, take your volume to 0. Thank you also very much, sir. Still on. Okay, let me see.
Okay.
Thank you so much, very much, Architect Lewis, for this very insightful and instructive session. We are going to definitely have to take some questions. Please, if you have questions, fill it in the chat box, please, so that we can mitigate the interference when you unmute your mic. Let's just use Architect Lewis, we'll take you on 2 things you said. Hold on.
Yes, there's a question here. It says, I believe working drawings should not have chairs, tables, etc. Somebody with some background noise. It says, I believe working drawings should not have chairs, tables, since it's not a presentation drawing. Depends on the information you want to give. Imagine you had a dining space and you not put where the dining table is and how the chairs are arranged. How do you put the center lights? And how do you, yes, so how do you show that? So in your drawings, it can be faded out. You can put it on a separate floor plan when you're doing your interior layout. But you see, you need to put that. If you had a bed head now, how are you going to put it in your drawings? So if people design bedrooms without designing where the bed is going to be, you need to coordinate that. If you're designing a hotel, if you go and see the working drawings for a hotel, all the furniture is there and it's detailed, it's dimensioned in detail. Okay. So you could have layers of drawings. So you could have a layer, as I've said, of different floor plans. The one that has the floor finish will not have the beds and furniture there. The one that requires for you to put fixtures in there will have the bed, the wardrobes, and all those details there. You can also, even your ceiling plan, you wanted the ceiling rosette to be the center of the room, but it's looking as if it's going to affect how it relates to the bed. You are going to have to coordinate all that. So chairs and tables is not for presentation at all. Don't make that mistake. It is to be able to know how your building is going to function. There are some buildings that he said not a presentation. So a question is that putting furniture is not just a presentation format. It's not just for a presentation format. In your drawings, you need to tell us, how will this bed fit into this room? How do I know it fits in? It's when you dimension it. It's when you relate it to every other thing within the building. And there are certain fixtures. How is your electrical person going to know where the sockets and switches are going to be by the size of the bed if the bed was not fixed there for him to see? Your dressing table was not fixed. So how is he going to put the socket? Yes, and when you cut the one elevation, how are you going to see where the top of the table is and where the sockets will be? The sockets sometimes end up being under the table because the table was not fixed there. The mirror, you now see some sockets are behind the mirror. I've been to rooms where the sockets are behind the bed head because they never place the furniture to relate all those things. So everything should be there. So your furniture is not just for your presentation drawings. There's a part of your working drawings where they become very, very crucial and important. You did not put where your TV was going to be in your drawings. So how are they going to fix the socket? How are they going to run the cable sockets? Then you see cables flying from one end to the other. You didn't fix where the ACs are going to be. So the socket to the AC is so long, you now have to power another cable running across from one end to the other. So there are working drawings for even interior design too as well, where every fixture is fixed. Yes, water heater in the bathroom, you don't know exactly where it is. I'm trying to see any other question. There are a lot of questions about getting the manual, where it's intellectual property. So I'm trying to see if there's any other question. Can the legend be enough for special keynotes for non-complex? Can legend be enough? Yeah, you can. It depends on the amount of information you want to put in it. Depends on the description, how detailed your specifications are. If they're very detailed, then you might have to even have a whole sheet. You know, you have a whole sheet to describe all that. Let me see. I'm not saying what's the difference between construction working drawings and a presentation drawing. The amount of information in it. A presentation is basically an aesthetic presentation of your work with just basic information. Like just have floor areas, you know, directional annotations. For construction working drawings is for the contractor to be able to put your building together. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Someone is saying here, must planners vet our construction drawings before it will be approved?
No.
Okay, let me read it. Okay. So someone is asking here.
Okay. Let me answer this one. Must planners vet our construction drawings? Must planners vet our construction drawings before it will be approved? Let me talk about Lagos State. Let me talk about Lagos State. Normally, we've had cases where we've had to reduce the number of sheets that we're sending for planning approval. Now, when you finished building planning approval, you now have building control to contend with. Now, what you need for plan approval is the basic outline and details of how your building is going to be put in place. And it's actually sent to an architect to check that you have what is required in it, not to a planner. The planner looks at your density, looks at your building height, looks at your use of the site, and basically that's it. So it's expected an architect is the one who is going to look at your design as okay, your room size is adequate and all that within the parameters of what is proper architectural design. So our piece as a first by at this point I begin to make okay. This is another question. Can my construction working drawings serve as a workshop?
Okay. So someone is saying, can my construction working drawings serve as a workshop drawing? for a subcontractor or a fabricator to use it to produce fixtures or kitchen cabinets for a project.
Now, when you do your construction drawings, they come in different details. If you are going to start doing detailed assembly drawings, you are now becoming a specialist. So, but how detailed are your drawings? That's the question to your subcontractor. Your subcontractor is supposed to and your fabricator is supposed to produce workshop drawings showing the components. I want to maybe say this, that a lot of people don't know the difference between architectural design and architectural technology. Architectural technology is the design of architectural components. So if you sit down as an architect and say, I want my POP ceiling to look like this, you're simply going to do the outline of what it looks like. The architectural technologist is going to sit down to see how it's put together. The screws, the bolts, the thickness of the material, the appropriateness. Is it water resistant gypsum board, fire resistant gypsum board? Is it MDF or HDF? What kind of glass is used? Is it tempered, is not tempered? And how is it going to be fixed? So that's when you now talk of workshop drawings. So workshop drawings go beyond just dimensioning the kitchen cabinets, length and breadth. The thickness of the material, the kind of hinge that is going to be used to fix it is important. All everything, the handles, what kind of door handles and accessories are you going to have in it? So workshop drawings are not simple things to produce. They are on a very detailed scale. If you've ever seen detailed kitchen cabinet drawings, every element in it is detailed, drawn out, and listed.
Yeah, another question says, can three-dimensional drawings, for example, axonometric drawings, be used for detailing callouts?
Yes, there are a lot of people now producing their working drawings in 3 dimensions, and its dimension, it's and shows exactly the section and an perspective view of the detail. And there are manuals that are of people producing such details now.
Thank you, sir. Someone is asking here, can we get to pay for the intellectual property? Can we get to buy the documents? Please let us know, sir.
Okay. I'll get back to you when I talk to the manufacturers of the document, the original authors.
Yeah. So another question says, when an architect produces a working drawing on a detailed part of the building, is there any need for the contractor to produce a workshop drawing?
Let me say this, you as an architect are not the one constructing the building. I once told a client, I said, in your building, I never picked up a hammer, a nail, or a screwdriver to fix anything in it. They were done by the contractors. And the truth is that if for a very good contractor, he will break down your working drawings to suit his work process and his building methodology. So if he wants to really analyze your work, he's going to tear it apart. And he might come up with some suggestions. Let me give you an example. You may have designed some part of the building that he has specialist form work that can actually reduce the cost. And he'll tell me, if I do it this way, does it still meet your aesthetic outlook? I could shave so amount. I could set up this process that speed up the construction process and accelerate it because I have this modular component. So the problem is just your 5 centimeters that is going to play all the way to making sure that I have to now get a specialist component, or it's just your 2.5 centimeters that is a problem. Can you live with that? Will the space still work with that? And I might save you 500,000, 1 million that goes back to the client. So these are things where when a contractor does workshop drawings of your design, he's going to do like formwork details. If he does formwork drawings for your building, he'll probably tell you where some little dimensions can be changed and to save a lot of money because there are modular components already available for it. And you're not going to now buy specific components for just that you're designing. It might be expanded, it might be, but there have been minute dimensions that really don't make a difference, but cost a lot because of that extra piece. Maybe you while you were designing, you got 2.45 and he has 2.4. That 0.5 may not change more anything in your design, but will have an impact on the cost. Especially when you have a large building. So a detailed contractor would analyze your design to that extent. One that is not detailed, simply go with what you have and spend the money.
Thank you, sir. There's a question here says, is there an official document available to architects, like a land use bylaw, used to vet planning drawings sent for approval?
I've been trying to find that too. If you find one, let me know. Because things keep on coming up. And you see, if you do an architectural design, not a copy and paste, something new is going to happen. Let me give you an example. We needed to put a design on an expensive plot of land, and we needed to max the number of dwelling units on it. So we had to do split levels. Of course, that was new to whoever was assessing it at the Fiscal Planning Authority. So what manual would I have used? They have some documents that have some basic rules. They are still the basic rules you find in Ag Data, time savers, and all those things. And but some of them, of course, they change them, and you have to find a way to, work towards them. But your best bet is try and get some planning information with a schematic drawing that contains basically all the information you want before you go into detailed working drawings and you've done about 100 sheets and they're telling you change this, change that.
Okay. Yeah. A question says here, I have come across grid lines that triangles are used instead of circles. Is there a reason for that?
Well, it causes a lot of confusion because in normal conventions you use circles, but you can create your own working drawings. I have told you that Franco Wright created his own format of doing working drawings, and his contractors are at home with working with him based on his format of producing working drawings. You are simply writing a letter to someone in drawing format on how to execute something. They're giving instructions to someone, and if your instructions are carried through consistently across all the documents you've placed, and your building can be built according to those drawings, why not? I know one other architect, someone like John Lutner. He does sketches with very big pencils and all that. It is architects and will now use those sketches to produce working drawings. And some of his buildings have been built with those sketches. So everybody has their style and their format. The question is, can your information help the contractor achieve the design without him getting confused and the design comes out the way you want it to be? So it's simply passing information.
Yeah, another question says, sir, are some of these details mentioned not supposed to be supplied during supervision, especially in case of consultancy?
Major problem. If you are supposed to be able to give instructions to a contractor, that doesn't require you to go to site every day. The architect is a designer, not a contractor. And if you have to be producing drawings as you walk along, then how do you manage your costs outlay of the project? If you've not thought through your design in detail and costed everything, you're going to have cost relations. Because as you design along, new figures are coming in. So it's important that you detail your drawing appropriately before moving to site. I always tell some people that I avoid provisional sums and prime cost sums. I tender every item to avoid variations. And even with that, there will be price fluctuations, there might be new materials that will come in as at the point at which the work is going to be executed. But if you put everything till later, you're going to overload yourself. And the truth is that your stages of work that you are being paid for, you are expected to have detailed your drawings to an appreciable level. Yes, we know that when you move to site, a lot of new things come up, but you should have taken care of as much as you can. That only the unexpected is what we show up, not that you are going to meet the expected. Okay.
Says, you mentioned that grid lines are more important than end-to-end dimensions. How about when you have quite a lot of walls that are so close? Will you not have too many grid lines? I've seen some drawings where the grids for some walls were left out. What's your take on this?
You see, the grid lines is what you use to do your setting out, and that's what you carry the building all the way to the top. Now, when you have that walls, you take your dimension from the grid line to that nearest wall. It should also be center to center. For anybody who's seen bricklayers setting out block work, you see that your center line dimensions is what they use to lay it out. Even the pegging of your parting boards on site. The center lines, the grid lines are marked all over the fence. And every other dimension is taken from those grid lines. That's the best way to get precise dimensions. Because if you try in, your line could have been twisted by just point something of a degree. It's not going to be the same at the other end of the building if you made that mistake. But if it's a grid line, you would know that those lines are going to be precise. And you can tell that there's always what we call tolerance of error. It's in every building. There is no way you are going to buy 225 mm block wall and all your blocks, thousands of blocks you are going to use are going to be exactly 225. The forms sometimes are buried near here and there. So construction of buildings is not dimensionally so precise. I will tell you that in each country, there is a tolerance that is accepted. And there is actually a textbook on tolerance, acceptable tolerance for buildings. If it's plaster from a certain height to 3 meters, there's an acceptable tolerance of deviation. In Nigeria, we get a lot more. So on a 3 meter wall, you might get somebody putting in as much as a difference of about 150 mm when they are plastering, which is wrong. And I first went to a building in Miami, and it was an 80-story building, concrete and block work, all the way to the top, 80 floors. And I asked them what was the deviation that was permitted. They said 25 mm on a wall going 80 floors high, plaster. So that is important, that you need to know that what your tolerance is. You know, even when you're doing windows, you know, if you do a window 1.2, the aluminum window is not going to come at 1.2, don't fit into a 1.2. It has to be slightly smaller. So if your architectural drawing was that you're having windows 1.2 by 1.2, you need to indicate, is that the rough opening? And if that's the rough opening, whoever is producing the aluminum cannot make it precisely 1.2 by 1.2. He has to give you enough gap for the windows to fit it. And then close that gap with caulking and expansion foam. Now, if you don't understand that these are the tolerances between one item and another item, you will never get a building to fit. And you see them chiseling walls all over again. So you need to understand how buildings are put together. And it's your contractor that should do all these workshop drawings. You do your window opening 1.2 by 1.2, but your frame is not, aluminum frame is not going to be 1.2 by 1.2.
Yes, sir. Someone is saying yes, sir. Sir, observations. After sending a sketch to a client, once we put dimensions or square meter, they will not call you back and give the sketch to another architect, and they will come up with your initial design, and the client will not pay you. So can we send sketch to clients without putting dimensions, but in uneditable PDF also?
Let me say this professionally. You're supposed to render service that meets your client's requirements. first and foremost, before being engaged to produce sketch design, get a contract from your client. Get, an appointment letter. So even when you produce sketch design, you are supposed to be paid for sketch design. That's the truth. In the conditions of giving the Accreditation Council of Nigeria Condition of Engagement, you are supposed to be paid for sketch design. So don't assume you produce sketches for people and they can give it to any other person. It's also called supplanting. And it's plagiarism as well. The architect who picks up your drawings from a sketch from from a client and works on it is supplanting you and also plagiarizing your work. So you need to be sure that whenever you are being asked to produce drawings, your client knows that he has engaged you. He has decided to give you the job. And if he says he's no longer going for it, he needs to pay you for the work you've done. A lot of clients are not educated to that level as to realize that every line you draw, you are supposed to charge for it. That's the truth. Yes, you might want to impress a client and produce some schematic drawings. You can have your own way of saying, look, I want to impress this client. It's a first-time client. So let me go with something to show I'm worthy of being engaged on this job. But as you move along, you need to keep it at the back of your mind that will also come into play. Now, if you're going to remove dimensions and all this for certain projects, the drawing is useless to the client because it's not looking at the aesthetics. He might be using your sketch design to run financial figures to see whether the project is viable or not. So it's a chicken and egg thing. So the best thing is to get an appointment letter that you have been engaged to produce, even if it's sketch design. It has a value and you can be paid for it. So, any other question?
No, sir. No other questions.
Well, I need to run.
Thank you very much, Architect Larry Lewis. That was quite exhaustive, insightful, and instructive. Oluwafumi Becky, thank you for anchoring the Q&A section. At this point, I believe, well, without doubt, we have come to the end of this lecture at this point. Well, it's all about information, getting your information right. What kind of information do you want to pass on to the contractor so that at the end of the day, your intention, your design intention is accurately interpreted? Well, I think without doubt, the lecture has been quite explicit and exhaustive in that regard. I want to say something, Architect Larry. I think you're going to do something. I took note of a webinar already that we're going to do. I don't know how, we will talk about it. You mentioned about that. This is how to dimension drawings.
Yes.
We're going to have a webinar on that. We will walk around that. We'll work on that. We'll talk through on that and see, because that is very key. That is very key. At this junction, I think we want to wrap up. And I know somewhere in the list of over 126 participants, we have Dr. Koye Jolaosho in there. Please, if you are there, Dr. Koye, kindly unmute your mic to give the vote of thanks or to wrap up this lecture on construction working drawing. Dr. Koye Jolaosho, please. If you're there, kindly unmute your mic. Ask to unmute. Okay, I've asked you to unmute, Dr. Koye. You can kindly do so if you're in a stable network environment. Dr. Koye, are you there? Okay. He's still muted. You are still muted. You need to unmute yourself, sir. You need to unmute your mic, sir. I've asked you to unmute your mic. Oh. Dr. Koyi, we are waiting for you, sir. Okay, if I believe the national president is also in this conversation, in this lecture, can we have our president, Architect Omasone, please? If you're there, kindly unmute. Yes. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Architect Boduri. I'm not surprised at the delivery of Architect Ladi, fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Architects, my own dear brother. It was quite exciting. Well, we continue to be proud of you. We continue to beg all architects that they should try keying into what we are trying to make the architect in Nigeria be. That is above the quacks. Do quality works, do quality submissions, be more professional as much as possible, be more diligent as much as possible. Ladi, we couldn't have had a better person to have delivered this than you. I really thank you. And I thank Boduri for the runs in making this another success. We continue to get more and more successes. We continue to aim at empowering our architects to make them better so that the architects tomorrow will be better than what it is today. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. May God bless us all. I wish you the very best compliments of this season. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Just to wrap up here, please kindly check the chat box. The link for this lecture is there. So if you want to go over the lecture again, you want to listen over again, kindly use the link to access our YouTube channel. And while you are there, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's Anchor Architects. Kindly do subscribe there. And there are other lectures on the our YouTube channel that you will also do well. Avail yourself to listen to and enrich your knowledge and expand your capacity in that regards. What we're trying to do is ensure that our YouTube channel becomes more of like a manual, what we call it, what do we call that thing? Practice manual, yeah, where it could serve as some form of practice manual for architects in that regard. So at this point, President, sir, thank you very much for that wrap up, for that vote of thanks. And I also want to thank once again my chairman, Architect Ladi Lewis, guest lecturer, the one I call the Ashiwaju of architecture in Nigeria. Well, now it has gone live. It has gone live. It's on YouTube. What I just said is on YouTube, sir. So, well, that dodging you've been dodging is all over now. Thank you so much, sir. Beckley, I thank you. Amani, thank you both for co-hosting here together with us. Well, it will be another time. Just kindly follow us on our social media handles for more information, for more seminars, updates that will be coming up probably next year. Next year, definitely, this is a wrap up for this year. Trust me, it's been hectic, but we appreciate the fact that all hands were on board to make it a success. And without you, the participant, it will be like talking to ourselves. Thank you for being part of this conversation, this lecture. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. We're signing out from here. This is Bodri Oguntoye, the architect and National PRO for Association of Nigerian Chartered Architects. Thank you very much. Have a lovely day. See you soon. God bless.
Asiwaju of architecture in Nigeria, I greet you.
Asiwaju of architecture in Nigeria.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Please have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.